Good morning. This is Mike Conklin with our series from Sentinels of Freedom called Veterans Never Stop Serving, where we interview the graduates of our program across the country. There's over 700 of them now, and talk to them a little bit about their experiences in military, coming out of the military, the transition, some of the hurdles they had to go over to get to their level of success that they enjoy today. There are a huge opportunity for every community in what they will do when they come home after selfless service in the military. Their injuries, transitions, all of those things kind of are different for each veteran, but in a lot of ways are the same. And we want to share these stories for you. So today we have Captain Anthony Taylor. Anthony was a special operations soldier, 75th Ranger Regiment for a while, and moved on through his education, and we're going to talk to him today about what he's doing. So good morning, Anthony. Good to see you. Rangers lead the way.
Rangers lead the way all the way, Mr. Conklin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good stuff. Now tell us a little about what you're doing these days, your family and your success and some of the hurdles you had to overcome in the transition.
Yeah, so I served about 5 years as an infantry officer. Most of that time was in the 75th Ranger Regiment as a Ranger platoon leader, and I ended up getting out, and education sort of lifted me out of the life I was born into, and so I naturally gravitated back to it and went to Northwestern to get my JD MBA. It was a 3-year program. Highly recommend it for veterans with the GI Bill who have an undergraduate degree and still have their GI Bill benefits, because you can get everything in 3 years, all covered. So I went to Northwestern. I explored the law side. I explored the business side. There's always a dichotomy within the JD MBA cohort. It's usually either a JD with a side of MBA or an MBA with a side of JD, and you kind of have to determine which one you are. And so I was unsure. I did an internship with Kirkland & Ellis, a law firm down in Houston, and then I did an internship with Guggenheim Securities in Chicago for investment banking, and ended up liking the business side a little bit more, and had an offer from Guggenheim to return in following graduation. And so I did investment banking for just shy of a year, and then I had some opportunities come up with some entrepreneurial opportunities that came up along the investment banking journey, that people were the entrepreneurs in my network that needed help with growth strategy, understanding finance strategy, understanding how to fundraise, how to put together pitch decks, how they should be looking at long-term growth plans and the financial implications there. And it was stuff that I had really picked up in both my JD MBA program and and at Kirkland & Ellis, as well as at Guggenheim doing investment banking. And so the skill set that I had gotten in such a short period of time, I was able to, being a Ranger, you don't have a low risk tolerance. So I thought the entrepreneurial route it was a leap of faith, but I decided to take it. And I've been doing fractional CFO work for about 6 months now, and it's been great. It's been very successful. Been getting a lot of additional prospective clients, and it's immensely valuable for both people that have companies that aren't quite big enough to hire a full-time CFO,
right?
And but are big enough to have to worry about what are we doing with our cash that's helping us grow, and should we raise debt? When is the right time to raise debt? Should we raise equity? I've always heard it's bad to give away equity, which isn't always true. And how do we do that? And so So I've been able I work with a children's book publisher down in Houston, and I work with actually a travel center, gas station with a restaurant and convenience stores, sort of think like a smaller scale Buc-ee's if you're familiar with that. And that's out of the Midland, Odessa area. And I have a couple others that are a little bit smaller scale for workload that are out of Colorado. And so that's kind of to catch you up from on the professional front. On the personal front, I left the military with my wife and son. He was, I think, 4 months at the time. To catch you up, I had my daughter at grad school, and I have another one on the way, a boy on the way in November. So growing both on the professional front and on the personal front, building out Fire Team Taylor as we progress through this beautiful life.
Sure. Oh, that's awesome. That's we really love to hear from you guys, and the fact that you're building your families and doing good things in your community. I suspect you're doing some volunteering also. And you're in a great spot. I mean, Texas is a state of innovation, becoming a big state of innovation, and we're losing a lot of companies from California that are moving there because of the opportunity, and so I think you're in a great spot for the kind of things you're doing, plus being able to fractional CEO capabilities with different companies. You're going to see a lot of different business opportunities, and someday you'll probably run your own company. So I really like your direction. When you were down at the regiment, were you at regiment, or were you 3rd Battalion, or?
So I was in the Regimental Special Troops Battalion, which I guess no longer exists, or is no longer going to exist soon. And so I was a platoon leader for the Regimental Communications Company. And when I went forward to Afghanistan in 2017, I was in charge of sort of the communications node writ large for the JTF that was over there for essentially the special operations footprint.
Yeah, that's my oldest son was in the comms. It was a comms guy at regiment for a long time, and RRC, RRD to begin with, and RRC, the reconnaissance side of it. So I get where you're from. Was it Colonel Ryan, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan? Wasn't he the head of SDB back then?
So it was Colonel Lubis when I first showed up, and then it was Colonel Ewers when I left.
Right. Yeah, God, such great people. I'm hoping to get down for the Ranger Rendezvous next year and meet my sons down there and catch up with everybody. But yeah, what an incredible organization. I just got off the phone with half an hour phone call with the Sergeant Major of the Army. The topic was recruiting, and I told him that I was stepping into a podcast with one of our graduates, and I would ask the question, what's popped up in the news recently is that veterans are questioning whether they would, some veterans, not all veterans, whether they would recommend joining the military at this point in time with all the craziness going on. And I'd like to get your read on that. You know where I stand. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. General public doesn't really know what the military does or the Army does. But yeah, what is your read on if a young person came to you today and said, thinking about joining the Army? Can you give me kind of your perspective on that? Because it's in my head right now that I'm going to be asking a lot of our graduates that question.
Yeah, I think every young male has a window in their life where they have that either adventure or entrepreneurial or exhilaration itch that they want to scratch. And for many generations, they've been able to scratch that itch through joining the military and been able to come out of it as better husbands, fathers, leaders, men for generations. I think now, and predominantly within the ranks, within the recruiting ranks, you see a lot of multi-generational military families where that sort of becomes the standard issue path for the children and the children's children.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's been a break in the ranks because of a variety of issues within the multi-generational family recruiting path, and also within that sort of young male seeking adventure and looking at potentially that joining the military or other options. I think there's been a break in rank for a variety of reasons. A lot of people attribute it, there are a lot of political reasons.
Yeah.
I think that the truth of the matter, because I speak about this with a lot of veterans, I stay in touch with a ton of veterans who I served with, specifically in the 75th Ranger Regiment. I speak with guys that are right on their last 2 years, and you ask, and they were multi-generational, and you ask them, and so the truth of the matter is there are really three hurdles that stand in the way of recruiting nowadays. And these three hurdles is what I would tell any young male, that if they are okay with getting over those hurdles, some will, some won't, then they will, then they should join. I think the first hurdle is this exhaustion from endless wars, especially when you see how the latest one, Afghanistan, concluded. I think that there are a lot of mixed emotions about, sparking up a new war that's just has no end in sight and has no real leadership pushing in the direction towards closure, and instead just pushing toward more war. I think that and then you see like the 13 servicemen members who were killed in Afghanistan as the closure of the latest one. I think that definitely weighs on people. I think that it's the other thing, and this is super political, but when you if you talk to people, this is the truth. The other thing that that veterans really didn't like was the vaccine mandate for COVID, and that just, whether no matter what you feel about it, the way the ranks felt about it, specifically the enlisted ones, are that they thought they were being roped in on a political operation, and that's traditionally and historically never been the way the military has operated. The military has historically been totally divorced from, the DC politics, and I think that sentiment, through that, it was a manifestation of sort of breaking into the institution, the DC politics breaking into the institution, that really, that's the way a lot of veterans feel, is they feel like DC politics have broken into the institution, and that's left an unsettling feeling, especially in the multi-generational families. And then I think the third issue is a lot of the messaging right now. I mean, I just saw a recruiting video about a major who's a transgender major, and how, transgenderism is an asset in the military, and everybody who's ever gone through the recruiting process, through the medical process, had if you had been on ADD medication, you were not deemed fit for service. But now the military is going to endorse gender gender transition hormones, and so there's a combination of, again, DC politics with sort of this hypocrisy of a lot of people getting, shut down for more trivial reasons from joining the military that have sort of shaped the public's image. And I think so. I think those are, and it's also kind of a knock on the bastion of what had, American society, American civilization has always had this bastion of sort of masculine energy with the military. And I think that because of DC politics, that is under siege, and young men who have that energy and have that that outlook on life, and they're seeking that sort of masculine outlet, they are hesitant about it now because of the messaging that the military is putting out. And until that messaging stops, and even if that messaging stops, I don't know if it's going to create an opportunity for like that sort of appeal to return, if that makes sense. So it's a very, very complex situation, but I think those are the three primary kind of pillars that I would focus on in the endless wars, and how the last one concluded, the vaccine mandate and the effect on multi-generational military families, and then also just sort of this DC politics and sort of this move into like inclusion is more important than a meritocracy in the military. And that just turns off a lot of these young men who want to seek out adventure, and they want to do push-ups, they want to compete, they want to be at the tip of the spear. That's what they're hungry for. They want it, but they may not be able to find it anymore, or at least that's what they think.
Yeah, I wonder if I just don't see the numbers. I just don't see the numbers that would justify this kind of influence from Congress on the military. I just think that they're getting into a mindset where when they want to do some social experimentation, they go, oh, well, our control group is the military. Let's start there. What's it going to be next? And I think it is, in a sense, it's demoralizing. For the troops. I mean, I can just see this. I mean, if you were going to tell a young recruit that, oh, by the way, half of your class in boot camp is going to be transgender or identifying as this, that, or the other, what are they going to think? So I think it's, and I don't know if this can get turned around. The people that really have to turn it around are the chiefs. They have to say no, thank you very much, but no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to be a social test bed for ideas that you have. We train for war and we fight wars. That's our mission. Don't throw this other stuff on it. Go try it in the public first. And so, our generals and admirals at the top really have to be strong enough to say, boom, we ain't doing that. Of course, what does that do? Well, it puts their position in jeopardy. Congress doesn't like to hear people say no, especially from the military. So there's going to be a give and take and a give and take. I hope it just all goes away at some point. I just don't see the numbers there. I think it's a fad, a flavor of the month. And the public or the media will move on to something next. Who knows what that'll be? It'll be something that sells advertising space. That's the whole thing. If it's not sensational, it won't sell advertising space. And so the morals and ethics of our national news on both sides, conservative and liberal, they still got to sell that ad space. And so they're going to continue to focus on the negative versus the positive. And I think everybody's just got to understand that. And But I don't like it. I mean, personally, I just think it's going to create a division in the ranks. And that's not good. So I appreciate your perspective on that, because we're kind of right in the middle of this talking about it. And you really have to talk to people that've been there, done that. You know, I'm not a veteran. I talk to veterans all day long on the civilian side, and I talk to active military, and you know, on the military side. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of all of this, but most citizens don't. They love the military, they love our veterans, they just don't know what the military does. And they don't understand the economic power and cultural, societal assets that our veterans returning our home are and provide. And that you just don't hear much talk about that. We talk about the World War II generation coming back, all of them going to trade schools and colleges. And in fact, we didn't have enough colleges. So they built, basically, that's where the junior colleges or community colleges started, because they needed more space. And so America can thank the military for building the community college system. It wouldn't have happened if that wasn't true. So yeah, a lot of stuff. I think that the main thing is educating the public. Military doesn't do a great job of that. You know, recruiting ads and things like that are, I think, subpar. They need to talk more about the opportunity, the education that you receive when you're in the military, and what that can do for you personally, whether you're staying as a career soldier or getting out and going into the civilian sector. So you know, you and I and a few others in this country are focused and understand that, but most of the public doesn't. And that's kind of our job, is to get out there and say, hey, look, you know, this is important stuff, much more important than this other noise, whatever it is, whatever the flavor of the month is. Still a very dangerous world. We still have enemies that want to destroy us, and we still need a very without a strong military, and without strong community support of that military, we're in jeopardy. So talking about it, I'm glad you're doing that. You're talking with your other veterans and other people about it. That's important, because they haven't had that experience. Most civilians.
And I have maybe 2 or 3 people a month ask me if they should join the military, and I talk with them about it. And frankly, it's not a yes or no. It's an exploration of what their goals are, because the military, as much as a lot of us veterans, not all, but a lot of us veterans are take issue with some of the modern issues, the military is what shaped us into the people that we are. And so while at the same time we have our fair criticisms, it's, you know, the military is a large, if not the largest part of my, you know, the shaping of who I am and the success that I've had both in the personal sphere and in the professional sphere. So there are issues, but it's still like, you kind of have to remember where you came from, and have that conversation with people and let people know that, like, look, this is how it worked out for me. But then there are also issues that weren't around when I was in, that you should be aware of, that I'm hearing from people live, you know, in the ranks.
Yeah, I was speaking to the Sergeant Major of the Army this morning on a Zoom call, and told him kind of what I've done for the last 25 years, and that I've talked to, I think I've helped at least 20 young men and women decide in their decision making, even though I'm not a veteran. I was talking about my experiences as a father, my son's experiences, my experiences in what we do, and the opportunities that they should be aware of, and the risks and the commitment. much deeper than usually their recruiter. And so parents will call me and say, could we come speak to you and with our son or daughter? And yeah, I'll speak, but I always have the parents there because it's parents have to be supportive to build confidence in the recruit that he's doing the right thing. But their knowledge base is usually subpar. So we try to build up their knowledge base and talk to them about options and things like that. Anyway, Sergeant Major Grinston said, Mike, how do we find more people like you? And I said, well, they're out there. I speak in front of groups all the time. And there's always veterans in those groups. And they are out there talking about the military and the opportunities. And so you're a great example of that. You're doing that, which is most of our Sentinels are involved in some sort of volunteerism in their community. And that's a part of what you're doing. And I think it's very important. So I applaud you for doing that, especially, the young folks want to hear from somebody who's been there, done that, and that it's not just all hype. And yeah, it takes hard work. But you're going to meet some of the best people in your life. That'll be lifelong friends, and the brotherhood and all of that. That's real. It has a real value, and that's what you can talk to them about when they're making those decisions. And that's a value to them. So I really appreciate you doing this, and please continue. It's not, military is not for everybody. I hear people sometimes say, well, everybody should go in the military for a year, like Switzerland, or Holland or wherever in Europe. I'm not so sure that that's cost effective or smart. We want the right people to join the military and for the right reasons. And we don't need, a 12 million member army or military like we had in World War II. We're down under 2 million military members. So, it's important that you guys, are teaching. We always say teach your children well. But you're teaching people in your community well as to the opportunity, the risks, the commitment, all those things that they need to kind of understand to make a qualified decision. And so, good job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're obviously, everybody's very proud of you. I know your family's proud of you and your buddies, and you're doing good things. And that's our return on investment and helping you move forward. And we'll continue to talk. But I thank you for coming on today and giving us your perspective and really kind of allowing other people into your life to listen about how you got things done. And after a tough injury, you didn't give up and moved on to the objective. So, all right. Well, this is Mike Conklin. Thank you for joining us today for our podcast, Veterans Never Stop Serving. And a great example of that is our guest today, Anthony Taylor, United States Army 75th Ranger Regiment, and doing very well down in Texas. So thank you for coming on again, Anthony, and look forward to talking to you more. Stay well. Mr. Conklin. Yeah, all right. Everybody stay well. Please share this podcast with your friends and family. These are great, inspiring stories, and they're real. That's the good thing about it. Okay. Thank you.